As many of you know, I really like secondary battleships and brawling close range in these giant ships. But one thing I'm really bad at in this game is patience. I have no patience in this game. For example, on the map Sleeping Giant, if I spawn near A in a battleship like the Preussen, I'm probably just going to send it into A, even if there's a DD on the flank, which, to be fair, he did torpedo earlier. That's what my Hydro was on for. So I'm okay from the torpedoes, but just look at how much damage I'm taking. Yeah, certainly not worth it, especially since there is a Kaga in this game. And, well, it's a battleship, and AA is basically useless in this game, so we're going to take some serious pain. And, well, we have done decent damage, and we've made it into the cap alive. We're not going to live for much longer. I don't have very much patience when it comes to waiting for the game to develop and make the correct play. Eventually, I do learn my lesson each time I sit down to play, but inevitably when I start a session up where I actually end up playing some of these secondary brawling battleships, my first few games tend to be a little too aggressive, and I get myself killed very quickly. We actually barely lived there through that Kaga strike, but of course they're always back for more very quickly. But still, we made it up to near 50k damage, and, well, we're putting a lot of pressure on the enemy team to try and kill us and get into A. Unfortunately, this one is going to end up in a loss, I believe, and we're not quite able to kill the Jean Bart as he pushes in on us. Although, he's not able to kill us either. But of course, reload booster is pretty good, and he does get the best of us there. So 70k and 1.3 million potential damage. Not the best game, let's be honest. So patience. That is what's required to do well in this game, especially at tier 10 in these brawling battleships. They're very strong. In close range situations, I think the Preussen is one of the better battleships in the game. It's got a lot of health, a lot of armor, and you get incredibly fast reloading, overmatching guns. And they're not the most accurate, but at close range, you don't necessarily need that accuracy quite as much. So in this match, I'm actually going to the A flank. A lot of our team spawned around C, so I wanted to support the A flank. And our team kind of wandered around in the middle of the map. So it's important that we kind of deal with everyone on the enemy team at the A cap for now, since we're kind of giving up C relatively easily. It takes a long time to push C. You're going to notice that the enemy team has actually invested quite heavily in the 10 line, and we have no one over there. So it's going to take them an incredibly long time to just sail along that 10 line and actually get control of C and get themselves back in the fight. Which means they're going to have a really strong cap. C cap is very hard to take back since it is so heavily defended by all those islands. But since they're out of the fight, we actually have a massive advantage in the middle of the map between A and B. We have an overwhelming local numbers advantage. So we're going to take out a Salem who pushed out a little bit too aggressively and try and help our DDs on their fights. Our Daring is doing a great job pushing and contesting caps, so of course we want to help him as much as possible. Since the extra spotting, cap control is very much necessary if we're going to have a chance in this game. But I'm also pushing heavily towards A. We have two destroyers there, which both have pretty damaging torpedoes, Shimakaze and Harugumo. Those torps hurt, and so we want to set up a crossfire with them. They're both in the same position, so the torps will be coming from the one line, and not much of a crossfire. But what it does do is it locks these battleships bow into them, or stern in if they decide to run away. And that's going to give us some free broadsides. Schlieffen's trying to push in and gives us a nice broadside. You can't expect too much out of the Preussen, but most of our shells landing short, that does hurt just a little bit. I think that if that's a bug, that's pretty frustrating, or if that's just normal dispersion, I can't quite tell since the ship is on a secondary build. I have the full secondary range of 12.5 kilometers, so it's tough to complain too much about dispersion when I'm not running the full dispersion build. The secondaries do come in handy though for situations like this where we can bow in on an island, protecting ourselves, isolating a fight. One-on-one with this Kurfurst. Well, it's not really a one-on-one. Our entire team is ganging up on him. But I am isolating myself, so a ship like the Smolensk that is kiting away back into their spawn can't get a good angle on me and start burning me down. Of course, with all this HP, percentage damage hurts, and that's what fires do. So I don't want to take too much HE pressure from a Smolensk, and you can see just how quickly this Kurfürst is getting melted. Yeah, the torpedoes hurt, and the constant fire from our team hurts. And you're going to notice as we pick up our first kill with a close quarters expert of all things, the enemy team does have C, but they're still not through it with their main capital ships. And this is what I'm talking about. They have 2 caps and a lot of control, but they're losing a lot of ships over here at A. So it's important we wrap this up quickly before we start getting crossfired from those guys over in C. That's what I'm mainly worried about here, but our team really is doing a good job of focus fire. This Schlieffen dies very, very quickly. And now that we've basically wrapped up A, the Smolensk is just going to run, so there's really no point in going after him. I need to go back and try and help my team deal with the incoming push. They're seemingly going into our spawn, and we have a Kurfürst down there. Well, normally it's not a great idea to hide a battleship down on the J line. In this case, I think it's a really good position, since assuming I'm able to get into a strong position around B using some of these islands, we're going to have great crossfires in for these guys. They're really not going to be able to push through, at least down south in our spawn around that corner. So they're going to be forced to go back up north through the middle gap, or maybe even back through their own spawn, which is, again, delaying and causing them to waste a lot of time while we just gain more and more map control, more cap control, and really are able to turn around and focus on them once we've kind of mopped up their teammates around the A and B area. That really did work out quite well this game. Our team has a lot of control, as you can see, and we didn't get caught up trying to chase a lot of these battleships since they decided to just push into us. It would have been a very, very different game had their Kurfürst and Schlieffen on A decided to kite instead of push into basically our entire team. Unfortunately, though, it is a bow in Yamato, and with our dispersion and lack of overmatch for battleships, we're going to have a tough time dealing with them. So that's why I've swapped to the HE, since I don't need IFHE for the secondaries to do good damage and 32mm. Our fire chance is decent, and with this kind of reload, it can do some work with the HE. It's not awful, but it's not the best option. I do want to try and stick with the AP and get as much armor-piercing damage as possible into the best broadsides possible. But for now, HE is fine. You can see just how atrocious the dispersion is at times here. But I'm moving up to this island at B. And I think in this game, I've done a much better job of being patient than that previous example earlier in the video. I'm not just going to full send it in here. It's time for me to stop and just hold on to this incredibly strong island. I have a 6-kilometer hydro, so any destroyers trying to get into the B cap now really do have to deal with me. I will be able to spot them, so it's really not a huge deal that we're giving up a bit of our northern B control. And you can see actually the entire enemy team's destroyers are actually all in one grid square, which did help us out in this game a lot. Going bow in here, of course, can get me farmed out by the Salem, but it's going to take them quite some time since I have 4 heals left and my damage control is available. And you can notice our Kurfürst has actually turned around and is pushing back into these guys. This guy played really, really well on the flank. He knew when to give up ground slowly, not too quickly to give a free opening for the enemy team to push. And then when he knew that he had support and there would potentially be some crossfires, he pushed back in. That's really cool, and that's crucial in my success here in this position. Going bow in on an island is a risky play, especially when you're going to be perma-spotted and a Salem of all things able to shoot you. A ton of DPM and a lot of fire starting potential. So it's important I help out where I can. Their Preussen is focused on killing the Kurfürst while the Salem is trying to take me out. And to help out my GK, I really do want to focus on the Preussen as well. The Salem can wait. We got plenty of overmatch, and our position is so strong for a team that they're going to have to push into us eventually. So dealing with the tanky pushing ships is really, really important here. So this Preussen actually ends up grounding in front of us, this extra secondary range coming in clutch here. Since a dispersion build would actually only have 11 kilometers of secondary range, we're still dealing decent damage with them here. And I will be greedy enough to get my rear turrets online, since the enemy Preussen isn't even looking at me. The really nice thing about the Preussen over the GK are these turret angles forward. There's no way at this angle I would be able to shoot my rear guns from a Kurfurst. That's really, really crucial here, getting as much damage output as possible. And this lightning fast reload, it's like 21 seconds base. Like, that's crazy. Base, I mean with reload mod. I think you should be probably running reload mod, but just as far as not running into adrenaline rush yet, it's around 21 seconds. It's really, really, really solid. And with us focusing on the Preussen, we actually managed to take him out before our Kurfurst goes down, which is really, really crucial since the Salem is still just a little bit distracted. And even though this ship can have some pretty poor dispersion salvos, sometimes it just kind of goes your way. We get 3 shells doing 3 citadels worth of damage. We didn't get anything other than citadels in that salvo. That's RNG at its absolute finest. So we're up to 185k and 4 kills, and our team is definitely in control of this game with 2 caps already. And unfortunately, they are pushing into the enemy spawn. This is a bit of bait usually in a lot of these games. If you overpush into the enemy spawn, you're probably going to lose a lot of ships. So that's why when we got control of A, I went to B instead of going into the enemy spawn. Our team, though, is so far ahead. At this point, there's really not much the enemy team can do. So I'm just going to push forward and try and get some crossfires, help finish off this Kurfurst. If you're wondering why it stuttered there, I apologize. That is my Starlink internet. Every once in a while, it does do that. And I didn't actually have my internet bonding app online for this game. I was just playing a match in the middle of the day. I wasn't actually streaming, so I probably could have dealt with that stutter a little better if I had had that internet bonding up. But we actually didn't drop connection, which I was pretty happy with. I was expecting to get kicked back to the login screen. So I'm really happy I stayed into this one because we would have been broadside to a Kurfurst. And that, well, not the best battleship in the game. It definitely hurts against broadside ships. And there's our high caliber. A lot of damage this game, and I'm really trying to get a crack in here. That really would cap off this game really, really nicely. Dev Strike, Close Quarters Expert, High Caliber, maybe a Confederate, and then a Kraken. That's really the ultimate kind of games I am looking for here. Unfortunately for me, though, a Shimakaze pops up right in front of me, and we're not going to be able to get this kill. Our friendly destroyer does a great job contesting and screening for me. I do have Hydra up, but unfortunately, even though we're bow into these torpedoes, I'm going to eat a lot of them. I probably should have put a little more effort into dodging these. I probably could have done a little better job and actually lived, but bow on, I think we're going to eat 3. Yeah, we're definitely eating 3. We're going to do some good chip damage into the Kurfurst yet before we go down, but yeah, not quite able to pass through these torps, and we barely live again on 1000 HP as our heal is ticking, but of course, Yamato's just going to kill us through our superstructure. That is very much to be expected on that kind of HP. But overall, a really, really great game. Had a lot of team support, but I think my patience helped that one go so well for me compared to that initial game at the beginning. Patience is key in these brawling battleships. As much as I want to just full send it in and brawl it out and have a great time, I do need to be patient and wait for the game to come to me. For the build, this is a bit of a hybrid one, I would say at the moment, running into some secondaries, but also trying to get some healing and tankiness out of this one. I am actually giving up Adrenaline Rush. As tough as that is, I do think reducing the amount of fire damage I take, because this ship does take a lot of fire damage, is pretty important. And I also really just enjoy secondaries. And our base reload with reload mod being 21.1, that's pretty solid already. I do think if you wanted to take Adrenaline Rush over basics of survivability, it's definitely doable, or just forgoing secondaries altogether. I just really don't want to, because if I'm not running a secondary German battleship, well, I'm probably just going to play a Montana or Yamato or something that's a little bit more accurate and better in those mid-ranges. Vermont even, as yesterday's video showed, it can do pretty well with Brisk. Ship Consumables mod is what I was running in that video, trying to get those 21,000 HP heals. But I've swapped it for Concealment for a few games that I've played today already. I think it's a little bit better, only getting 19,000 HP heals, but running into some little better Concealment at 15.9, allowing me to play a little more freely without being spotted all the time. And of course, the extra bonus of reduced dispersion of the enemies shooting at you. I think that's probably a little better, but maxing out healing is a pretty fun time as well. Seeing those huge heals coming through on a ship that has so much HP really is pretty solid. But that is the Preussen and the patience test that is this game and Brawling. I definitely need to work on it, being more patient, but when I am, it tends to work out pretty well. These ships are quite strong in these brawls. It just requires a little bit of patience on my end. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.